My mom said at brunch, "We're just trying to be nice, including you. Don't think you matter." My uncle laughed. My dad said nothing. I took one sip of coffee, nodded, and left quietly. 2 weeks later, the cabin they all loved sold. Then I closed the family's shared credit line, flagged their subscription cards, and waited. That evening, my phone exploded with messages from the family chat, and then I received the first call from. At first, I thought I'd misheard, but I hadn't. My mom really said it out loud in front of everyone. And my uncle laughed, loud, careless, like someone had just delivered the punchline to a good roast. My dad didn't say anything, not a word. He just kept eating like she commented on the weather. It wasn't just the words. It was that they said it there in front of my cousins. My uncle's wife, my sister, like they were performing, like I was the family joke, and this was just another Sunday showing. I felt shame rise up in my throat, hot and bitter. I wasn't ashamed of who I was or anything I'd done. I was ashamed because I'd sat down at that table thinking maybe they saw me differently now. That maybe after everything I'd helped with, things had shifted. That maybe this time wouldn't be like the others. But they weren't ashamed. My mom had a smirk on her face like she'd finally said what she'd been thinking for years. My uncle laughed like it was his reward for showing up. My sister didn't even glance up from her phone. My dad just ate his eggs. That was the part that stayed with me. He said nothing. I felt anger move through me, quiet, solid. But I stayed calm. I didn't make a scene. I nodded, took one slow sip of coffee, stood up, and left without a sound. No one called my name. No one followed me. No one even looked surprised. I walked out into the parking lot with the sun hitting too bright on the pavement. Got into my car, sat there a minute, and then drove home with the windows down and no music playing. Just me, the wind, and a buzzing in the back of my head that wouldn't go away. By the time I pulled into my driveway, I had already made the decision. No revenge, no yelling, just removal. Quiet, clean, and complete. The cabin was the first target. My parents always told everyone it was the family cabin. Like we'd all pitched in. They left out the part where I paid for the roof, the foundation repairs, and the new plumbing. My name was the one on the deed. They used it like it was theirs. Holiday weekends, family getaways, 4th of July barbecues. I logged into the real estate platform I use for work, pulled up the listing draft I had been holding back for months, and made it live. It sold in 5 days. Full cash offer, no counter. Gone. Next, I pulled up the shared credit line I'd opened for my parents when they wanted a new washer-dryer set and didn't have the cash. I'd been paying the minimums quietly for the last 6 months. They didn't even remember the account was in my name. Closed it. Account locked. Auto payments canceled. Let the bank handle the calls. Then I went after their Amazon cards. They had been using the Prime subscription I paid for, tied to my main account with their own cards on file. I flagged all 3 for suspicious activity and submitted a support ticket asking to shut down the household account entirely. That night around 9:40, the family group chat started blowing up. My sister, "Why is my Prime account canceled? Did someone get hacked?" My cousin who removed the cabin from the calendar? My mom, just 3 question marks. They still hadn't figured it out. Still hadn't put it together, and none of them mentioned brunch. None of them asked how I was. They were just confused, annoyed, entitled. Then my phone buzzed again. Not a text, not a family call. It was an unknown number. I answered. It was my mom's lawyer. The call came around 7:15 the next evening. I was sitting at home with a bowl of pasta that had gone cold, ignoring the 5th message from the family chat. Unknown number. I almost let it go to voicemail, but something told me to pick up. "Hi, this is Carol Walker. I represent your mother and father and some ongoing family arrangements. I was hoping we could speak for a moment." Her voice was calm, professional, rehearsed. I didn't say anything, just waited. She continued, "Your father has asked to recover the vehicle you gifted him 2 years ago. He intends to transfer the title to a colleague of mine. I understand it was a gift, but he's requesting the car be returned immediately." For a few seconds, I just stared out the window. I wasn't surprised. Not really. They'd lost access to the cabin, the credit line, the accounts. Now they were digging for scraps. It wasn't about the car. It was about making sure I knew they still had leverage, that they could still take swings at me when they wanted. I asked her when and where. She sounded a little surprised, like she expected a fight. She gave me a time the next day and their address. I told her I'd be there, then hung up before she could add anything else. That next morning, I cleaned out the car, took everything that was mine, the charging cable, the registration I'd kept as backup, the old pair of sunglasses, and the glove box. Felt strange, but not sad. Just final, like closing a file you'd had open for too long. I drove to their house at exactly 1 p.m. Same driveway I used to shovel when I lived at home. Same hedge that always died in the winter and came back in crooked patches. I parked, got out, and rang the doorbell once. My mom answered. Behind her was my dad, arms crossed, just watching. My sister was inside, too, stretched out on the couch with her phone, pretending not to be interested. She was wearing the same hoodie I bought her last Christmas. I held out the keys and said I was here to return the car just like the lawyer asked. My mom didn't take the keys. She just stood there blinking, then said we needed to talk. That this whole thing had gotten out of control, that we were family and families shouldn't act like this. Her tone shifted fast from cold to soft to performative. I didn't step inside. I told her I wasn't interested in talking anymore, that I wasn't angry, just done. I wasn't going to play along with their version of things. I wasn't going to keep giving while they kept finding new ways to remind me I wasn't part of them. Not really. That's when my sister sat up and launched into it. Said I was taking everything personally. That I was twisting what Mom said. That she'd been under stress. That they'd all been dealing with things I didn't understand. That I was throwing away relationships over one comment at brunch. I just stared at her, let her talk. None of it meant anything. She said I was wrong about everything and that I'd regret cutting off people who cared about me. I wanted to ask when that caring had actually happened, but I didn't bother. I placed the keys on the porch railing, turned around, and walked back down the steps. My mom called my name once like it might undo something. My dad never said a word. I ordered a taxi and sat quietly in the back, staring at the street signs, the same ones I passed when I used to ride my bike to school. I didn't feel good or bad, just done. When I got home, I logged into my bank and canceled the $900 transfer I'd been sending each month for my sister's rent. She lost her job back in February and said she just needed help until she figured things out. I didn't ask questions. I just sent the money. A week after the first payment, she bought a pair of designer boots and posted them on Instagram with the caption, "Retail therapy." I should have stopped it then, but I didn't. I kept paying March, then April, then May. The payment for June was already scheduled. Can let it. The next morning, I woke up to a storm. 10 missed calls, group messages, voicemails from my sister in 3 different moods, confused, angry, and guilt-tripping. She said she was going to be evicted, that I'd left her hanging, that I knew she was struggling, and now I was just punishing her for a fight I had with our parents. She said I was being cruel. I didn't reply. By afternoon, the chat had turned into a war zone. Cousins were chiming in, asking what was going on. My uncle sent one of those. "This family is falling apart." Texts he always sends when he doesn't understand something. My mom sent a long paragraph about how communication is the only way forward. Still no apology, still no one admitting anything. That night, the messages stopped. And then the next morning, my dad finally said something. The message came just after 6 o'clock in the morning. I wasn't even fully awake when I saw it light up my phone. One sentence in the family chat sent from my dad's number. "If this behavior doesn't stop, everyone who doesn't live here will no longer be welcome in this house." That was it. No preamble, no emoji, no explanation. Just flat direct. It was so out of character, it took me a moment to believe it was really him. He was the quiet one. The one who always sat through the drama without stepping into it. He rarely texted, never commented in the chat. If he had thoughts, he kept them to himself. So when he spoke, everyone noticed. My sister answered almost immediately, "Wait, what are you talking about?" She wrote, followed by, "I live there now." He didn't respond. 5 minutes later, My mom sent a long paragraph about how the tension in the family was weighing on everyone and how we've lost sight of what matters, and communication is the only path forward. It read like she had copied it from some therapy podcast she listened to while cleaning. Still no reply. I didn't answer either. I just watched it unfold. What no one said directly, but we all knew, was that my sister had moved back in. She hadn't admitted it in the chat, but the signs were there. She stopped talking about her apartment altogether. No more pictures of her old building or the stupid balcony with the 2 fake plants. And then there were the stories she posted. Grainy shots of their kitchen table, her cat lying on the ugly green couch, and the unmistakable wallpaper in the background. She hadn't told anyone, not even me. And when I cut off her rent last week, she didn't push back as hard as I expected. She just vanished for a few hours and then reappeared later with cryptic posts and no mention of where she was living. But now it was official. She was back home living with them. And my dad had apparently had enough. After his message, the group chat froze. No back and forths. No pity plays. No one trying to shift blame. Just silence. Later that day, my uncle tried to lighten the mood. He sent a message saying, "How about a family barbecue? Clear the air. Burgers fix everything." No one reacted, not even with a thumbs up. That might have been the first time in family chat history went completely ignored. By evening, my mom tried again. Another long message, this one more emotional, about how no one was perfect, but we had to find a way to heal. She even mentioned that Dad didn't mean it the way it sounded, like he was some confused old man who needed translation. But he did mean it the way it sounded. Everyone knew that. The second night was even quieter. For once, the chat didn't explode with nonsense. No one sent links to discount codes or forwarded blurry photos of old family reunions. I checked my phone every few hours, almost out of habit, and there was nothing. It wasn't peace. It was the eye of a storm. Everyone had felt the ground shift. No one wanted to be the next to trigger something. Even my sister stopped her usual routine. No messages, no accidental texts meant to provoke me. No sarcastic little posts, just radio silence. I took a long walk that night around the block down to the end of the park trail, past the bakery that always closed too early. I didn't think about the cabin. I didn't think about the car or the rent or what my mom said at brunch. I thought about my dad. His silence had always made me think he didn't care, that he was just checked out, too tired or too weak to get involved. But now I was starting to wonder if it was something else. If maybe he had been watching all this time, building his own quiet frustration just like I had, and maybe finally he had enough. When I got back home, I looked around my apartment. For once, it felt like my space again. Clean, quiet, unbothered, no tension pressing in from the outside. The next day passed without a single family message. And that's when I noticed something I hadn't felt in a long time. Relief. No chaos. No guilt trips. No emotional ambushes. No one pretending the past never happened. Just quiet. And in that quiet, something else started to grow. My life began to feel like mine again. The silence didn't just continue. It deepened. 3 days passed then for not one message from the group chat. Not even from my mom, who used to send daily articles with titles like How to Rebuild Trust in Families or passive-aggressive memes about forgiveness. By the 5th day, I deleted the thread entirely. I didn't block anyone. I didn't make some big statement. I just removed the app from my home screen and went back to living. And strangely, things started moving. Work got better. I was focused again. Clear. For the first time in months, I wasn't carrying invisible weight into every meeting. I got through full days without the buzz of a text throwing me off. My mind, which had spent so much time scanning for the next hit, just quieted. I started cooking again. I went back to the gym. I rented a car for a weekend road trip just because I wanted to drive without remembering who used to sit in the passenger seat. No expectations, no obligations, just me. Then on the 6th day, I got a call from my sister. I let it ring out. She left a voicemail. Her voice was strained but controlled. She said she needed to talk, that things had gotten out of hand, that Dad had shaken everyone up with his message. And now Mom was on edge, walking on eggshells around the house. She said she was trying to fix it, but she needed my help. Then she said it. I know you canceled the rent, but if you could just cover July just this one last time, I promise I'll figure it out. I didn't call back that night. She sent a text. You seriously just gonna leave me screwed over? What? Comment at brunch. Grow up. I didn't reply to that either. The next morning, the explosion started. A cousin messaged me privately asking what happened and why everyone was acting like someone died. My uncle sent a new voice note saying I was being cold and immature. My mom wrote a paragraph that I didn't bother reading. I caught the preview in my notifications. It started with, "You're not the only one who's ever felt hurt," but the one that stuck came from my sister later that night. She wrote, "They're talking about making me leave. Dad won't even speak to me. Are you seriously okay watching that happen?" It was desperate, but not apologetic. There was no acknowledgement of anything she'd done. No recognition of what I'd been through. Just expectation, still thinking I'd come through, that I always would. I didn't answer. 2 days later, I got a notification from one of the old family group threads I hadn't muted yet. Just one message from my dad. "I told you all to stop. If you keep pushing, you won't have this house." No one replied after that. Not even her. After my dad's second message, the family group went dead silent again. Longer this time, 3 full days. Not a word. It was the kind of silence that doesn't feel peaceful, just loaded. Like everyone was holding their breath, waiting to see who break first. On the 4th day, I was standing in line at the pharmacy when I got a text from a number I didn't recognize. It was just a link to a Facebook post. No message, just a link. I tapped it. It was my sister. A long public post about toxic families and how some people pretend to help just so they can control you later. She didn't use my name, but it was obvious who she meant. She wrote about a certain sibling who had financially abandoned her and turned the whole family against her for no reason. Comments poured in. Her friends chimed in with things like, "You deserve better," and cut them off for good. I didn't comment. I didn't message her, but I screenshotted it. That same night, I got a text from my mom. "We need to talk. It's important." I ignored it. The next morning, everything cracked. Around 9:30 a.m., my cousin Ben called me directly. I almost didn't answer, but he was one of the few who hadn't picked sides yet. "Hey man," he said, "have you talked to anyone today?" "No, your sister's not living there anymore." I paused. "What do you mean?" "She showed up at my place last night with bags crying. Said your dad told her to leave or he'd throw her stuff out." I waited. "He actually said that, apparently." "I don't know what happened exactly, but your mom's been calling everyone this morning saying she had no idea he'd go that far." That caught me off guard. For all his recent coldness, I didn't think he'd actually throw her out. But then again, maybe I'd underestimated how far gone he was from the whole mess. Maybe it wasn't just me he was tired of. Maybe he'd been quietly watching all of it for years, same as I had, and he finally snapped. My phone buzzed again while I was still on the call. It was an email. Subject line, "Termination of joint account authorization." It was from my dad. He'd removed my mom from one of their shared financial accounts, the one I had helped him set up online 2 years ago when she kept losing track of bills. I wasn't supposed to still have admin alerts, but apparently he never changed the backup contact. Within an hour, more came in. A utilities account change, a canceled recurring insurance payment, one that was under her name, and then finally a voicemail from my mom. This time, her voice wasn't measured or sad. It was angry. She said my dad was being irrational, that he was punishing all of us, and that this is what happens when you let things fester. She said I needed to come talk to him, not her him. That part stuck with me. They weren't united anymore. They had split, not officially, but in some kind of unspoken household fracture. I didn't call back. That night, I sat on my balcony and looked out at the city. It felt distant, like it was happening to someone else. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel tangled up in their chaos. I didn't feel responsible. I felt free. 2 weeks passed. Not a single message. Not even a forwarded article from my mom or from my uncle trying to stir things up. The group chat stayed dead. It was like someone had unplugged the whole network and no one dared to flip the switch back on. I didn't say anything. I didn't check in. I didn't wonder. The weirdest part wasn't the silence. It was how quickly life started falling back into place once they were gone from it. I started sleeping, like actually sleeping. Not the kind where you wake up at 3 a.m. thinking about a conversation that hasn't even happened yet. I woke up rested, clear-headed. I wasn't scanning my phone for chaos. I wasn't adjusting my day around who needed what or who was about to blow something up. I went back to the gym, bought groceries that weren't prepackaged. I even started volunteering twice a week at a local shelter, something I'd thought about for years, but never had the mental bandwidth for. Then, completely out of nowhere, I got a letter, a real one, handwritten. No return address, but I recognized the handwriting instantly. My dad, it was short. Alex, you were right to leave. I stayed quiet too long, and I let things get out of control. You don't owe anyone anything. You never did. Whatever peace you found, keep it. Dad, no drama. No, I'm sorry. No guilt trip. Just those words. I read it 3 times sitting at my kitchen table, and I didn't know what to feel at first. It wasn't closure. It was just confirmation that maybe I hadn't been crazy, that maybe someone else had seen it too. Even if they didn't say it in time. I didn't call him. I didn't text. I folded the letter, put it in a drawer with a few other things I keep that remind me who I am. A few days later, I got an email from my manager at work. The project I'd been leading, one I thought no one was paying attention to, had saved the company more than expected. They were promoting me. Bigger title, better hours, more control. I accepted it the same day. No hesitation. Then, for the first time in my life, I booked a trip just for myself. 2 weeks. A small cabin outside Flagstaff. Trees, sky, no neighbors. I rented a car, shut off all notifications, and left. And here's the thing no one talks about. Healing doesn't always feel good at first. Sometimes it feels empty, like you're standing in a room where a storm used to be, and now all you hear is the wind. You expect the next wave of noise, the next demand, the next fight, but it doesn't come. You start filling the space with things that matter. You start remembering what your own voice sounds like without theirs in the background. I didn't miss the family chat. I didn't miss the guilt. I didn't miss the performance. On my last night in the cabin, I sat out under the stars with a blanket and a beer, and I thought about everything that had happened. The brunch, the car, the credit line, the voicemail, the post, the eviction, all of it. And for the first time, I didn't feel angry. I just felt done. Not in the dramatic way. Not in the way people say when they're still waiting for someone to chase after them. I was actually truly done. They still exist. They still talk. I'm sure there's still gossip about me. Maybe they even think I'll come back someday. But I won't. Because sometimes walking away isn't a reaction. It's a decision. A slow, careful one. One you make with a clear head and a steady hand. And once you've made it, you don't go back. The update. It's been 2 weeks since I got back from the cabin. I unpacked everything the night I got home and didn't tell a soul where I'd been. Not one message to anyone in the family. Not even out of curiosity. Nothing has changed on their end. Still silence from the group chat. No random check-ins. No updates. My sister hasn't tried contacting me again. Not after the Facebook post and being kicked out of the house. I heard from Ben that she moved in with a friend temporarily. Apparently, she's been telling people she's taking time to focus on herself, which sounds like her usual way of avoiding responsibility. As for my parents, I haven't heard a word from either of them since my dad's letter. No calls, no guilt, nothing. And weirdly, I think that's how he meant it to be.